Yes, I'm Ruthanne Jahoda, and you're on Shared Abundance Organic Farm. Well, um, I had a nutritional business, and it was nicely successful. And one day I said I could do whatever I want to do right now. And uh, the first thing, I didn't even have to spend time with that question. I knew I wanted land. And so I said, oh, I'm going to go buy land. And I had the feeling that I'd had when I was a child about wanting to be out in nature and on land. And so it was just kind of a very unfolding kind of thing, the decision to buy the land. But um, because I had experience with um, a close member of the family having um, challenges with substance abuse, I thought, this is perfect. My education as a teacher made me feel that I could create on land a an environment that would help people that were drug and alcohol abused. So that was how I went into it. I wanted to create a space where there was nature, good people to work with, a curriculum that was soulful and meaningful and that had good work and they could eat good food. And so I wanted to create an environment that would be a contrast to what maybe they have been used to. So that's how I went into it. And before I found the land, I started having meetings with community members who were interested in supporting an endeavor with um, working with young people. So, so I found this land. I won't go into all that, but I finally found this land, and I first bought the house straight up from where we're sitting now. There's a house on the hill, and that's what I bought first. And so the whole property was 18 acres. And and so when I got here, I was like, because I had been an organic gardener all my life, I thought it's going to translate. I'm going to know just what to do. And I got here and I went, oh my word, I have a big learning curve. So I really, I was walking around the land one day and I said, well, I can't bring people here to heal them until I know this place and I have worked it and I have related to it. And so I knew that I had to set my project aside. I heard the words watch and wait and listen. So I just I kind of sat on my hands, but got to work on the land. And so that was the original interest. But once I was focused on the land, I wanted diversity and I wanted to know what the land wanted to grow. And I wanted to experience a lot of different crops. So when I came here, the kiwis, this had been 4,738 kiwis on the 18 acres. But when I got here, 10 acres of the 15 had been cut down and 5 acres of kiwi remained, and they hadn't been watered or pruned in 7 years. And so when I came in and introduced myself to neighbors, they said, I'd get rid of those kiwis. I'd get rid of them real fast. You can get more money for the peeler cores and the steel wires than you can make selling them. I thought that was interesting. That house has a deck on it, and I'd stand up on the deck and look out at those kiwis. And it was a mess because, you know, blackberries had populated underneath and climbed up through 7 years of branchings on top of the steel wires. And so it was a mess. And I could imagine, you know, there wasn't a lot of good going on down there, but they were alive. Some of them, most of them were alive. There were some dead spots. But just one day I said, all right, I'm gonna, I'm gonna harvest, I'm gonna learn to prune 3 rows, 100 trees. I'm gonna see what happens with 100 trees. So in a kiwi orchard, every fifth tree is a male. So of the 100, 80 would be producing. So I got in there and I had got a brush hog and a machete, and I got in there and I cleaned up 3 rows. And the first year I got 600 pounds of the biggest, most beautiful kiwis. You can't, it was like a mango. It was so beautiful. The second year I got 17,000 pounds. And the third year I got 33,000. And I said, oh, I get it. This is worth it. So I was the new kid on the block as far as selling them. So the year that I got the 17,000, that was the second year of after I got them cleaned up. I sold them to what was then Mountain People's Warehouse, which has become UNFI. And Mountain People's Warehouse used to be so close by here. It was like 5 miles away. So I drove them over there, and big fiasco. They put them in a cooler with apples. And you never, ever, ever store kiwis with apples, because kiwis are softened and ripened by apples. Apples and bananas and pears have a large amount of ethylene gas. And so the ethylene in the closed cooler just, anyway, so they spoiled about, of the 17, I think they bought 15,000 pounds, and they probably spoiled about 12. Anyway, that was a horrible beginning. But anyway, I started calling produce people, produce distributors, to find out what to do, and it was terrible. Then I just decided I'm just going to go to the co-op, and then that was the beginning of my relationship to the Sacramento Co-op and the Briar Patch Co-op. And just shortly after that, I got into Davis. So Davis Co-op came on about, I was in the Davis market, I think in 2002. No, 2003. Mm-hmm. So anyway, it's been a good long relationship.
What year did you start?
So I turned 50 in June 1997, and that was the day I signed papers of the house for the house. So I bought the land when I was 50 and started a whole new chapter of my life. And actually, I was certified organic in the year 2000. And yeah, so it's been, I would never put chemicals on my land. I would never put chemicals on people's food. So my priority was clean food, clean land, clean air. I don't want any chemicals, and I don't want to give food to people who would have chemicals on food. So, so that was my first priority. And then, when I looked around, by the way, this piece of land did not look like it does now. This was entirely, this 10 acres on the west side of the Kiwis, it was all overtaken by blackberries. But I still looked around where I was on this piece of land. I looked, and all I could see was abundance of nature. And so I said, this is shared abundance. It doesn't have to do with what I can produce. I'm not producing this. This is nature's work. And I have my hands in it, but I work with nature in my farming. So that was another priority, was to create along with, in the Bioneers, they have a saying, mimic nature. Whatever you do, mimic nature. So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to communicate and collaborate with nature to do my work. And then diversity became, well, everything that I saw was diverse, and that created the abundance. And I knew that the diversity would lead to balance. I have very little pest problem. And I know it's because it's diverse. Everything is mixed up. I have rows of herbs out with the produce, the flowers intermingled everywhere, the different trees, the canopies. It all plays a part to create diversity, which creates balance, which creates soil. First, I want to say there used to be a nursery in Auburn, and the man, I think he was, when I came to town, I think he was 80. And I went to him, his name was Earl Isley, and I went to him and I said, if you had 5 acres and you could put any crop on it, what would you put on? And he said, grow what you love. So that became my motto. I want to grow what I love, but I also want to grow what people want. So when I would go to the market, I would see what people wanted, and that played a part in my decision. I wanted to grow what the land wanted to grow. I wanted to grow what I could love, and I wanted to grow what people would want. Chickweed. I try to have something wild on my table at all times. We have an abundance of oat straw. So I've taught people how good oat straw is for you. And so people buy it every week at the market. We grow nettle, and nettle is not unknown, but it's not ever found in the grocery stores. And so people love to find the nettle on my table. I just showed you this overgrowth here of miner's lettuce and chickweed. We're past that season now, but I harvest wild greens for lettuce, and I put the wild violets in it, and violet leaves. Violets are a high vitamin C food, and all the wild food has way more vitality than the cultivated food. So I always try to have wild foods on my table. The other thing that I'm doing that I really love is I've gotten coaching from herbalists and have learned how to make tinctures and oxymels, and so I want to give you a taste of the kiwi oxymel that we made with fermenting the kiwi, the chickweed, and the violets together with vinegar and honey from my land. And so the whole thing is like this massive elixir that is just, it's thrilling to me to use all these leaves. Like, do you know loquat leaves are good for respiratory? So there's medicine everywhere. And my last task on this farm is using all the medicine and helping people understand that our medicine is all around us. We don't need any chemicals. Our body can't really use them. So making use of all this shared abundance of, of medicine is just, it's thrilling to me. labor. I find that it's very difficult to find people who, number one, want to work the land, and number two, um, uh, where are they? The people from south of the border have it in their culture that they work the land, and so I have had, um, people come through that that have history in working farms, but it's pretty hard. The labor issue. I've had volunteers. I've had woofers. Some of that wasn't so great. Um, so labor is my big issue, and then starting at middle life or um, starting as a senior was um, a little bit of a challenge. I have a CSA. That CSA means they began in Europe, community supported agriculture. And in the original model, people came together in the countryside. They came to the farmer and said, we'll support you if you grow our food. So they gave their year's worth of produce purchases to the farmer in the early winter. And then that farmer had the resources with which to create for his community. That came to the U.S. in, I think, the early 60s, where around the Waldorf school communities, CSAs developed. Anyway, in my community, I couldn't, Auburn wasn't ready for paying up front without knowing me, so I just charged by the week or the month, and that has worked for me. So I have a community supported agriculture, a small one, and that's been wonderful. I have had a participation in the Placer County um, Farm and Barn Tour. Placer County in October, they invite the whole community to go around and tour farms. So you make your farm ready, and then people just come in the course of the whole day, and you can do farm tours or classes or have vendors or whatever you want. And the community does come out. Hundreds of people come out. So that's another thing. And then I've done cooking classes, and my has been vision over the years was to create nature walks for children. Also, there's a woman, Allison, in the community who knows a lot of people, and she'll, like when we were harvesting this year, she gathered up 24 people on 3 occasions, and they came. Sometimes they could only be here for 2 hours, and they would harvest 2,000 pounds of kiwis in just a couple of hours, just because they wanted to be on farm and have a farm experience as community members. So that's been real nice. I think I probably said that a little earlier. Everything that you see around you here, we've planted. One of my helpers has been here since 2001, and he and I were the two mainly that we dug the electric lines, we dug the sewer lines, we blah, blah, blah. And so all of this we put in the ground. But that biodiversity is what I think creates environment. It creates the harmony, it creates soil, and it's certainly a pest deterrent. So those thousands of acre expanses, all of these massive mega farms they have where they, quote, have to spray chemicals, I think the future is in small farms. I'm 78, and so it's pretty hard to talk about expanding in one sense, but my vision for some time has been to bring children here and to work with people to create a space where people could experience nature. I feel that in the city there's nature everywhere, but in the city you can't taste it as much as you can out a bit. And so I want people to be able to walk and sit amongst the trees or lay in the flowers or whatever, just to experience nature. We have a little place where we call an earthing spot, where people can just lay down on the soil and put their feet in the soil. So, and then I'll just say it. I have had a soft spot in my heart for depressed women. And I feel like that curriculum that I wanted for the young people with drug and alcohol abuse could be similar, quite a bit more gentle, but the hands in the soil, artistic projects, therapy in the orchard, eating food, picking and eating our food for the day, all of that. I feel like the land wants to give more than the food, and I'd like to be part of that as I finish this life. Foster and sustain. I believe that small farms not only are the future, but they're the only way to create the culture. When we say agriculture, there's a culture of care that belongs with food, that belongs with land. And I feel most of the time in these huge projects, it's sort of like rape. The way the land is treated, it isn't a part of the nurturing that I believe we need to bring to the land. The land is certainly taking care of us, and we need to also do the same. So I feel that educating the community, the way the co-ops do, is important. And, I know that there's lots of, cooking classes and outings and things like that. I think that educating people on the value of supporting small farms so that they can exist. There's not many regulations that are supportive to small farms. And like I couldn't get, because I didn't have 20 acres, I couldn't get the tax bracket that goes with agriculture. I'm out here producing food. Anyway, so it's stacked against the small farms, I feel, so that the big farms have all the power. And I know that that is not the future. It's not. I think we all have ancestors who have been farmers, and we've grown up hunting and gathering through time as we humans have evolved. And I think we belong on the land. And so giving people opportunities on the land, educating them what farms need to be in order to have the food be full of life and full of nutrition.
That's it. So awesome. Thank you very much.
I've had an
That's
education
awesome.
here. I've had an education here. I had an idea, but I've been educated by nature.